Welcome back to this bonus episode of the Grouch and the Brainstorm. And today we have a actual recording from an intergroup meeting, and it's our very own Lisa tells her story. So I'm going to go ahead and make a disclaimer. Some of the audio may not be as good as some of what we have on our shows, but we had to get it, and I wanted to hear it, and I wanted you to hear it. The story is hilarious, sometimes tragic, sometimes sad, just like you hear with all of us. But this is a really good story. So take it away, Lisa.
Well, so here I am, and I am Lisa, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Lisa.
And by God's grace and God's mercy, I've been sober since 6/25/22, and I'm truly, truly grateful for that today. It was not my first sobriety date. My first sobriety date was April the 25th of 1988. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, because it tells me in the preamble what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So I was born in Tyler, Texas. My mother was young. It was an accident that she'd gotten pregnant, and she married a man that was in the Navy, and he was my father, and he came home, and I was 6 months old, and he got hit by a train and killed. So, and then my mother remarried, and when she remarried, she had my brother, and he was 3 years younger than me, and so I thought that his dad was my dad. I mean, that was just, I grew up with him, so Terry was my dad. And so when I was about 5 years old, my mother and him got a divorce. And so my mother was still young. I mean, because she was only 16 whenever she had me. And so she needed to do something to make a living. And so she went to beauty school, and she was very successful at that. And she was very good, a great hairstylist. And so people offered her to go to Dallas and work. And so she really couldn't do that with 2 kids, and so she left us with my grandparents. And we weren't there that long, and my brother was going to go live with his dad. And I could not understand why my brother was going to live with our dad and I was not. I mean, that just didn't make any sense to me. Did he not like me? Did he not want me? What the hell? And so I just didn't understand. So at 5 years old, my grandmother stood there and told me that my dad had been killed by a train, and that was not my dad. So that was devastating news to me. And listen, I don't think that anything that happened made me who I was or made me do the things that I did. But things happen in your life. And I love my grandmother and my grandfather, and they were like my parents to me, because her youngest daughter was only 3 years older than me. So I called her mom for a long time. And my mother would come and get me. And listen, my mother was married several times. I thought it was 7, but I found out later it was 9 just last week or something. I said, what the hell? And so they were surprising to me. But, you know, my mother, she taught me that there was a way out. She taught me from out of this little bitty town that only had 385 people that I could do something. I could leave. I could be whatever I wanted to be. And so I don't hold that against her. At the time, did I? Yes, I hated my mother for leaving me. And at the time, after my grandmother told me that, my dad, that I called Dad, decided that I could come live with him. Now, do you think his wife wanted some child that was not his to come live with him? No. It was not good. And so I remember sitting there, and my grandmother, and she had made some pancakes and something, and she made me eat this whole big stack of pancakes. And I was only like 6 years old, and I just couldn't do it. And I remember looking at my brother, and my brother had tears rolling down his eyes, and I thought, no, this is not what I want. I don't want my brother to hurt like that. I'll just go back to my grandmother's. So I went back to my grandmother's. And so I really felt like I was just out. I just didn't feel like I belonged anywhere, you know? And my grandmother had 6 daughters and 1 son. She should have stopped at the 6 daughters, but they had the 1 son. And so with that, there was just something wrong with him, you know, and he, I don't remember a time whenever I wasn't sexually abused. I mean, it was just part of life, and I just thought that's what it was, you know. I mean, what do I know? And he paid a lot of attention to me, and so I would think I was going to go play a game, but then the game was not really a great game, you know. And so I really hated him. And I kept it to myself, and he constantly told me if I ever told anybody that they would not believe me, and that things would happen. And he proved that to me because when I was 9, my room got burned down in the middle of the house. There it went. And it was at Christmas, and everything in there was gone. So I believed him. And I remember looking down, I had some black patent leather shoes on and some little white socks, and I went to my great-grandma's. And I just thought, man, I will never say nothing. I knew I wouldn't. But I thought something was really wrong with me to make somebody do that to me. And I thought I was just special and that I was the only one that was happening to, but that was not the case. It was happening to the younger sister and to one of my cousins, but I just didn't know that. And so you just didn't talk about it. And so I never said a word. And we just went on like that. My mother was very successful. She worked for Tony Bennett, and he had salons, and so what she did is she managed these salons. He laundried money, and so there we were, And so I would go and I'd live with my mother, and we'd be there, and we'd get up in the middle of the night because somebody was trying to break into the house or something. It was just always kind of crazy. And so, I was living in a penthouse on the 23rd floor of Houston, but then I would be back at the 365 people in this little bitty town with horrible crap happening to you. And so I just kept it to myself. And my mother really wanted to try and make that life. And I can see today that that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to marry someone, make an automatic family, but the problem is that you were going off and finding a man and then coming back and getting me, and that shit didn't work because I didn't like him. You hear me? I didn't know him, didn't like him, and whatever he said, I didn't have to listen to. Pretty much I was pretty pissed off. And so it didn't work that well. So by the time I was 13, I was acting out a lot. And I'd found alcohol. By the time I was 9, I was smoking cigarettes and cherry vodka. Remember cherry vodka? So me and my younger aunt that I called my sister, we were babysitting, and we would drink that whole bottle of cherry vodka. It was like 11, and I was like maybe 9. But we could drive, we could do a lot of things because my grandfather had a salvage yard, so we always had cars. They were Corvettes, they were any kind of damn car you wanted, so we'd just go riding wherever the hell we wanted to go. And so my mother would get a divorce, find somebody else, and they were always different, she married all these people, and I was just like, what the hell? And I'd be just thrown into these things, and I'd be like, well, this is different. And so she gave me a party like when I was 13, and it was the guy that his name was Bill Williams, and he did Snap-on Tools, and so he had this huge place, And so we went to the fair in Fort Worth. We didn't just go to the fair, we drove through the back alley, So I thought, well, hell, that's pretty damn cool, I like that, And so I got all this stuff for Christmas, and I would love it, but then I would lose it all. So nothing was ever mine. I never had anything. Because my mother would bring me stuff and then everybody else would take it. And at the time, I really just didn't care. I was just pretty much over it. And I didn't like people. And I couldn't remember anything in school. I'd go to school and I would try my best, but by the time I got back the next day, I didn't know. I didn't know what the hell we'd done, why we were doing it, or how we were doing it. And so the last time she came to get me, she had married a psychologist. Worst damn thing she could have ever done, because then he thought he knew what I was thinking. And I thought, dude, if you know what I'm thinking, we're both in trouble. You hear me? And so I was smoking pot by then because she was smoking marijuana and I could smell it. You got a crack in your door about this much. Seriously. You think I'm going to bed at 9 and I don't know you're smoking pot? Hello? And she had food poisoning a lot, which I don't think was food poisoning. I think it was more like acid trips or something, but whatever. They were experimenting. And so I experimented with them. Whenever they weren't looking, I'd go get it. And I didn't care. And at that point, I did not care anymore. And when I didn't care, that was a bad thing. Because I wouldn't lie to you either. She'd ask me what I was doing. I said, I'm leaving. She found a carton of cigarettes in my drawer. I said, you can throw the damn things away, but what I'm telling you is you're just going to buy some more. And so she'd get frustrated, and so then they put me in a private school. They thought, hey, a private school's gonna work, right? So they put me in this private school. That was the worst thing because I found more drugs and alcohol than ever there because everybody else was jacked up too. So there I was, and I had to drive 45 minutes to school. And so I have the psychiatrist that is my stepdad, and we're in Dallas, and something was said, and I wore a halter top, and so my mother come in and called me some names because I would never come home when I was supposed to. And she said, she called me something, maybe a whore or something. And I said, well, maybe I wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for your brother. And she said, what'd you tell me? And I said, maybe I wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for your brother. And so she promised me I'd never have to go back. 2 weeks later, I was back there because I was so out of control. You know, I was out of control. You couldn't control me. And so then she came and got me, and I went to Van High School. And listen, I was on my way to school, and he said he knew everything that I was thinking. And I thought, this is not good, because I'm thinking about killing your ass, is what I really was. And so, and I'd smoked a bunch of stuff, and if there were pills, whatever it was, I'd just take it, because I wanted to change the way I felt. I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling, and I didn't want anybody to control me. And so as we were going along the road, we were going about 55, and I said, I'm going to jump out of this car if you don't shut up. And he said, you're not going to jump out of this car. Bad choice, because I jumped out of that car. So I rolled about 150 feet, and I was in the hospital for quite some time, and my mother was pissed off because she was going to have to miss work that day. And I said, do you not see that I rolled 150 yards? I mean, like, half my shit's messed up. But it was okay, you know. And so at that point, it was over with. And so when I went back to my grandmother's, and my uncle picked me up one more time from school, and on the way home, I knew in that moment that I would kill him if he stopped that car. I knew it. And I think he knew it too, because he never stopped that car. And let me tell you, in all the years of my children, he never spoke to my children. Never, not one time. And a lot of people don't understand how I could be around him and go see my grandparents or see my family. But see, that would have made him the winner. And Alcoholics Anonymous taught me that too. You know, either I can be a victim or I can be a survivor. And I am a survivor. I am no victim. I don't need no pity. I am okay. I mean, life is life. And I wouldn't be the woman that I am today if all those things hadn't happened to me. And that's a fact. So, you know, I tried to make the best choices. And then I met Terry Everett. And, you know, when things like that happen to you in life, you grow up a lot faster. So I might have been 14, but I looked like I was 18. I can promise you that. I could get in any bar I wanted to, go anywhere I wanted to. And I liked drinking, so I hung out with the older people, and I would get in bars, and they would let me in. And so I met Terry, and I don't know why people liked me, because I'd be like, I don't really like you, but okay. But he fell in love, and I was like, okay. So I married him. And listen, before that, I met somebody else, and I made my mother sign the paper for me to get married. And I married this guy, and he literally beat the shit out of me for about 2 or 3 months, and then we got it annulled. And after we got it annulled, I just went on with my life. I didn't ever live with my mother after that anymore. And you know, she just had a messed up life. I mean, imagine the shit that she went through, and here I was just being the shit from hell. And so I loved it when anything bad happened to her, really, because I thought, you deserve it. You know, you left me here. You should have never left me. So I was not a good kid, and I had no sympathy. I didn't care. And so I met Terry, and he wanted to marry me, and at 16, I got married. And I tried to go back to high school. I couldn't do it, you know. I remember going in there, and I was at the school, and they, after I got well from jumping out of the car, and they said, you cannot leave this property. And I was in a 280Z from my grandparents, and I said, either I'm going to run over your ass, or you're going to let me out. And so he let me out. I'm pretty much sure he knew that minute. And so I left, and I never went back after that. So I didn't know what I was going to do. So he asked me to marry him, and I said yes, and he was a good guy, and he came from a good family, and I thought, this is something different than I've ever had, so it's got to be better than what I had. And it would be secure, and it would be okay. So we ended up getting married, and he drank a lot, and I thought, he's the alcoholic, I'm not the alcoholic. Shit, you know, he drinks every damn day. But the deal was whenever I drank, I broke out in different places, like everywhere, and I wanted to go places and do things, and I wouldn't come home. I would just do whatever the hell I wanted to do. But he was gracious enough to let me do that. And he was going to drive down there and kill my uncle one time, and thank God that he didn't, because what if he had of? My children would not have a father today. And so we had 2 children, and I did exactly what Dr. Spock said. He said, you get married, wait 5 years, have 1 child, wait 3 years, and have another one. I said, okay, well, this shit's working out great. It did not work out great. And I was crazy, and I thought when I had those children that the same things were going to happen, and I just was not, I didn't know how to do it. I just was not good at it. And so I was about 21, and I'd ended up going to beauty school, and for some reason, listen, I never cut a head of hair on a doll. I didn't play with dolls. Are you crazy? I mean, I might have chopped their heads off, but I didn't play with dolls. And so here I was going to beauty school. And my mother was the first hairstylist, and I was their last one. And it just came natural to me. I was just good at what I did. And so I was very successful at that. And so I got out of there, and I became like the top stylist of Regis Corporation in less than 6 months. But I wouldn't talk to nobody, so they were going to fire me. Imagine me not talking to anybody, right? Because I'm pretty damn loud. But I wouldn't, and they said, you got to slow down, and you got to talk to your clients. So I was like, no, it's not going to happen. So I did it, and then the lady came back, and she goes, that's okay, just go back to doing what you were doing. I said, okay. So I did. But then I was introduced to methamphetamines, and I was introduced to black mollies and to all these things. And listen, I would carry a 101 proof vodka with me, and we'd pour it in our drinks in the back room, and we would drink that as we did hair. And man, I could do some damn hair, you hear me? And I was great at it and made a lot of money at it. And so, but I went off the chain, and I decided that I wanted to leave him, that it was not working. He had cheated on me, and I just said, I don't like that, and I refused. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, I was in sobriety. But when I was pregnant with my son, I caught him cheating, and the oil business went down. Everybody knows in the 80s, the oil business went shit. And when it went down, we lost everything. And so I was not happy. And I called my mother, and I said, I don't think I'm going to stay. And she goes, well, I think you need to think about what you're doing. I thought, this lady's crazy as shit. But okay. So I stayed, and I made a decision that day, because I had to ask myself, if I was going to stay in this, then I was going to have to totally forgive this person and just move on. So I tried that, and I did, but it just was not okay. And so then I ended up, and I weighed 90 pounds, and I was gray, and I was not good, and even the people at work, I just started losing everything. And so they did an intervention on me, and they asked me if I would go to a treatment center. And I thought, hell, there ain't nothing wrong with me. You're the one that needs to go to a treatment center, but okay. And so, it was just out of control. And I didn't know any better. I just thought that's the way people did things. So I partied all night and stayed up all night and go to work. And we did a lot of partying. And I love ecstasy. I thought it was the true syrup. You could tell anybody anything. If I didn't like you, I'd tell you after I took that, I really don't like you. But I like you today. And they'd be like, okay. And so we'd keep drinking, and I'd be like, okay, this is good. And so that's what I did. And so I went to this treatment center, and I watched pink balls bounce around for a few days, and I thought, I don't really know what's going on here. But they had a meeting, and it was an AA meeting, and you had to get up and go to a podium. And so I was willing to do anything. And then I had been so miserable for so long with all this stuff that I had inside of me that I thought, I do need some help. I need to quit feeling the way I feel, because I felt like I had this sign across my head. Screw me over, it'll be fine. And so I came clean. I got a counselor, and I said I was an alcoholic. And I took that sobriety date, and I ran with it. And I didn't know how I was going to be able to forgive people. Listen, you think I was going to forgive him? You've lost your damn mind. Somebody, that page in that big book, 449, no. That's not page, that's not part of the 164, and I'm not doing it. That's just a fact. But I was pregnant with my daughter, and I knew I was miserable, so I had to do something. So I remember calling my sponsor, and she said, listen, I want you to read the book, Came to Believe. And I said, okay, so I read it. And then there was something else that Living Sober. And so I read that, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And then when I realized that I wasn't forgiving him for him, I was forgiving him for me, I thought, okay, I'll do that. I can do this. So I did. And then I went to that counselor, and listen, I stayed with her for 7 years, and I went through a lot of traumatic things during those 7 years. But by God, it came out, and I had to go and tell my family, which was probably not the smartest thing I ever did. But I did, because that's what my mother wanted me to do. So the moment I got out of treatment, there I went. There I go. I go over there and I tell my grandparents, and my grandfather was very upset. And I always thought that my grandmother had my back, but it was really my grandfather. But you don't know that for a long time. You don't know what life really is holding. And so they cared about me as much as they possibly could. Lo and behold, during that time, my mother decided to set me down and said, so that man that got killed by that train, well, that was not your dad. And I said, what? First she got me high, and I said, what the hell? I said, you have to get me high so you can tell me this? She goes, yeah, well, your dad was your aunt's fiance. And I said, well, no wonder that woman didn't like me all these years. Shit. I mean, I get it. And she didn't. She did not like me, and I could never figure it out. Well, now I know. And so I was like, what the hell is going on? And my life is, I just had no idea what my life was. Who was I, where I came from, or anything. And she wanted me so badly to go and find my dad. And I was like, why do I need to find him? I've been living without him all this damn time. What the hell do I need him for now? I mean, it's useless. So supposedly he had had a lot of money and stuff. And so I go to Las Vegas, and there he was on the news because he had stole from Horseshoe some silver. And so they were going to court for him stealing that. And I thought, well, that shows what kind of person I am. I mean, I've got some real good people up in my life. But I never followed through with that. I just let that go. And today it doesn't bother me at all. If you don't miss something you don't have, you never had it, then you don't miss it, right? So it took a long time for me to get that through to my mother. But I just couldn't stay away from the alcohol and the drugs. I just couldn't do it. And I freaking loved clear liquor. If it was clear, I wanted it. I wanted to try it, and I didn't know how to mix it with other stuff. I thought you're supposed to drink the fifth, and then, hey, everything was great. I could jump out of cars. I could do all kinds of things. And so I was Superwoman. And I would wake up the next day and be miserable. I would just be miserable, and I would do things that I didn't wish I could do. But I was pissed off at my husband because he could black out, and I couldn't black out, and that'd make me madder than shit. I mean, you get to do things, you don't remember it. I do things, and I have to remember it, and this is no fun. I don't like it. And so I couldn't comprehend that. But and so how could I be the alcoholic? I mean, dear God, you're the one that drinks every day. I don't do that. I'm a binge drinker, If it's there, then I'm going to drink it. I mean, I was so drunk on my wedding day that I couldn't even drink the champagne because we drank so much of it the day before. I said, oh, no, I can't do that. And so it was just insane. But I kept on going. And I always believed in God because my grandmother said that my dad was in heaven. And so I knew that there was a God, and there was my dad, and that was the only thing that could keep me alive. It would be okay. So when things were not okay, and when I was running and I would hide or I would do things, I would think, God's got me. It's going to be okay. He's up there, and he's going to protect me. And so I live with that. And so I learned how to forgive him, and I did. And then I went on with those steps. But I skipped 6 and 7. Skipped those suckers. And I went right on with 8 and 9, and they were all I'm sorry's, and I will never do that again, and all this stuff. And I was young. I was in my 20s, so of course that's the way I sounded. And I thought, well, I've done all this stuff. I've done these 12 steps. I've been to treatment. I mean, I don't feel like that I'm a completely crazy person anymore. I can hold my head up. People believe in me, and they trust me, and I become successful, and I could go anywhere, and I went to work for a world famous hairstylist, and I started working for him, and that was incredible. I couldn't believe that I could do that, but Alcoholics Anonymous afforded me that. But then I knew that I still didn't like that husband at home that drank too much because he kept spending more money than I wanted him to. So I said, this ain't working. I'm going to find me somebody in AA. And I did. I found a woman in AA, and she became my best friend. I thought, yep. This is what's wrong with me. It's not that I'm crazy. It's not that really I'm an alcoholic. I must just be a lesbian. That must be the problem. And so I went with that. And so I left my husband. And my mother paid for him an attorney and everything. And at 3 years of sobriety, Here comes my mother in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting just like this in Tyler, Texas, and she is coming after me because I, at the time, had a cleaning lady that cleaned my house once a week. And she was sick, so I got my sister-in-law to do it, and she found a letter from my girlfriend. And I was 24 hours away from having full custody of my children and being divorced. And I lost my children, and I lost my job, and I lost everything inside of sobriety at 3 years of sobriety. And the people of Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. They literally did. They held me up. What I understand today is that I still was not making good decisions. You hear me? I fired that sponsor that said she was praying for me diligently. I said, oh, hell no. Get out. You're crazy. I don't want you anymore. So I got me another sponsor. And I'm glad that I got him because he helped me and he loved me unconditionally and he let me be whoever I needed to be. And thank God. You let me be whoever I needed to be. You don't come in here and get well in one day. I don't know about you, but that is not what happened. It's taken me 30-something years to get to be okay. But having that and just being by myself, and when me and that girlfriend broke up because I'd lost my children, I was not okay. Thank God somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous gave me a job, and I worked for them because that was the only salon that would hire me at the time. Because my mother had power, and she made sure that nobody would hire me. And so it was not good, and I hated my ex-husband for taking my children. I mean, because I wanted my children. There's so many people that didn't want their children, and they got to keep their children. That pissed me off, too. So I was not doing well in Alcoholics Anonymous, I can tell you that. But I was doing the best I could. And when all that was said and done, and everything was fine, and I made myself go have dinner by myself. I made myself get on a plane and go to St. Croix Virgin Islands by myself at 5 years of sobriety. And I spent it by myself. Now, as soon as I got there, I found somebody, I called Central Service Office, and I spent time with them, and it was the best trip I'd ever had. And so for me to be able to do things by myself and be okay with me and be my own best friend was a great thing. Because I didn't have my children on Christmas Day, because his family always did it on Christmas Day, so I always went to a movie on Christmas Day. So I had a good life. So what was wrong with me? Something was still not right with me. I was sponsoring people, I was doing things, I was going and speaking, and I could laugh, and I had friends, but I was missing something. There was something inside of me that was missing, and I wanted something, and I didn't know what it was. You know, and it tells you in the big book that you can go anywhere you want to go. You can do anything you want to as long as you're spiritually fit. I thought I was spiritually fit, but I wasn't checking with you to see if I was spiritually fit. Then I started getting mad at people. I didn't like you anymore. I didn't like you anymore. You know, you were saying things that I didn't want. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic. I mean, I'm tired of these people trying to tell me what to do. And I got like that. And at 7 years of sobriety, I thought something was wrong. But at 6 years of sobriety, I thought, things are not okay. And so I don't know what to do. So I'm going to take myself out. So I take a handful of pills. Do I tell anybody? No. And, you know, things just wouldn't kill me because I tried to kill myself. Obviously, I jumped out of a car and it didn't work. I'd taken so many pills in my life or OD'd on alcohol and been so sick, but it just didn't work. And so I really wasn't afraid of dying. It's just that nothing would kill me was the problem. And so it just didn't matter what I did. And so after that, I tried to stay and I tried to go back to AA, and I'd pick that one person that would say, I'm not sure you're an alcoholic, you're probably in the wrong room. And I'd think, I don't like that bitch. And I stayed sober because of her so long, because they'll tell you, stay sober in spite of them. It doesn't matter. But until I could surrender and believe, it just wasn't going to matter. And so I left Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had, at that time, had rebuilt my life. My mother was working for me, and all those people that didn't like me was working for me. I had a 17-station salon, and all my mentors were working for me. You know what I did? I got a U-Haul, and I drove across the line to Louisiana. Sure did. I said, I'm not staying here. I like Louisiana. But I was going to bars, and I thought I could do that. because I was lonely and I wanted something to fulfill me. I was thinking that I was okay and that I could do anything by myself, and so I got the ego and the big head and all this stuff, and eventually I took a drink, and I wanted that drink. And once I did, it was over with. And I knew that there were certain things I didn't need to do. I probably didn't need to do any methamphetamines because that made me crazy. So I stayed away from that. Well, you know, eventually, if you drink enough, your brain will tell you it is okay. You need something to stay awake. Okay, well, I tried that again. And so eventually it got so bad. And I was in a relationship, and I didn't want to ever lose that relationship because I wanted it to work, because I didn't want to be a failure at anything anymore, because I was so tired of failing at stuff. I don't feel like a failure today. I feel like a winner today, and that's because I just gave up. The day that I went to jail on on June the 24th, my partner said, "I hope you go to jail." And I said, "Oh, well, that's good. We'll see what happens." And I did. And so I went to jail, and I had been doing some shady things, you understand? I had learned how to be such a great con artist and how to do things, and I put some money in some banks, you know, so they knew that I had some money, like $20,000 or whatever. So then when I decided to do something shady, like take 3 checks and pretend that they were for something else, they gave me that $10,000. But I was so shady. And so I had stole that $10,000 from them. I had to make amends for that stuff. I learned how to gamble. Once I started gambling, I thought that this was the way to go. How could you go wrong? I won $88,000 in a week, you know. Probably about a month before I got here, I won about $64,000. Not that I didn't find the $1,870 on the floor and pick it up to go to a different casino to win the $16,000, but hey, it was mine, wasn't it? So I was horrible, and I was taking your stuff, my stuff, and anybody's stuff, and people would say, "Don't you like this? Don't you enjoy it?" And I was like, I don't really know if I like it or not, but I need to make a living. And I bought a house, and I had lost electricity in it. I was stealing water from my neighbor. I mean, and the people that I was running around with was horrible people. It really was. They were not good. A couple of them are sitting right here. So obviously it was not working, because here they are, you know. We got into some trouble. But anybody can get sober if they want to. If you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you will. You know, and I tried to move home and fix it. I was trying to do everything, and I was still trying to cover it up, and nothing would cover it up. So when I went to jail that day, I called that sponsor that I had called periodically over the years, and I said, "I made it back." Because I didn't think I could make it back, because I kept trying to come in these rooms, and I couldn't do it. It just wouldn't work. I'd get mad at somebody. And so this time it didn't matter. I was there. And I spent 45 days there. And being 58 and being in a jail and never being in a place like that, I did not like them telling me what to do. And I didn't like the breakfast, and I don't like hard-boiled eggs. I don't like a lot of that stuff. And I don't want nothing orange. Don't buy me nothing orange, even like that. Just keep it away from me. So but I managed to get through that. You know, and whenever I got through that, you know, I'd done so much. I had flipped my mother off, stole $40,000 from her. You know, and it just, nothing mattered. My kids were not speaking to me. Nobody was speaking to me, and I was so angry. And when you get so angry, and if you're an alcoholic and you start to do something to them, things are not okay. You're going to do some crazy stuff, and it's going to hurt you. And it hurt me. And I ended up owing $70,000 to the IRS. And I was running from that since 2016, because I started to fill that thing out. When I started to fill it out, I said, "Oh, I don't have that kind of money." Because I'd spent it all. And I didn't want to tell my mother, and I never want anybody to know. And so I came in here, I was facing 25 years because I had obviously tried to take some drugs into the jail, and I didn't know that because I was so jacked up. And so they said, "That is 15 years. And I said, "Oh, shit." And so I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I just gave up, and I begged that clergyman. I wrote him every day, "I need a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I need a big, y'all not have AA meetings in jails? I need a meeting." I knew what I needed. And it took me a long time to get there. But once I realized what I needed, life was so different. I got that book, and I read those 164 pages so quick you just would not believe. My partner had spent every penny. See, I was smart in the beginning. I didn't give him my bellphone. But then, about 2 weeks in, I gave him my bellphone, so they took all my money. So I had nothing. I had a pair of jailhouse shoes when I got out of there. And so I just wasn't angry at anybody anymore. I was ready to give up. So I said, this is what I got to do. And I knew what I had to do because y'all taught me what I had to do. So I get to that treatment center because the lady asked me when I went to pre-court or whatever, she said, do you have money for bail? And I said, no. And I thought I did, but I said no for some reason. That was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. So I couldn't come up with that $600, and so I sat there for 45 days. My daughter talked to me just for a minute or two, but she really wouldn't have anything to do with me. My mother would not speak to me. So they said, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to let you sit here for 45 days, finish out your sentence, and then we're going to send you to a treatment center. Is that okay with you? And I said, sure, because I've been praying to go somewhere. I didn't know it was jail into a treatment center, but that's okay. I'll take it, because obviously what I had been doing was not working. Wasn't working anymore. And I didn't want to be a gangster. I didn't want to go and help you rob a house. I didn't want to be your driver. I didn't want to take your dope. I didn't want to take your money. I didn't want any of it. I just wanted to be okay. And so I knew the only way to be okay was to just give up. And so I gave up that day. And when I read that, and I called my sponsor, and he had cancer, and he had been really sick. And I said, I made it back. Because, see, I was supposed to go see him about 7 months prior to that, and I called him, and me and my mother were in a fight. But it didn't work out because I was so messed up that I just left and came back to Shreveport again. Just left him hanging. And so when I called him and he answered, I was so thankful he was still alive. So then when I get to that treatment center, he said, listen here, Alcoholics Anonymous didn't leave you. You left Alcoholics Anonymous. Pick up that set of tools and start walking. And I thought, he has had too much chemo. There's something not right with him. But that was not true. He was telling me the truth. And I didn't understand that. And he goes, are you sponsoring anybody? And I said, they really have jacked him up because I should not be sponsoring nobody. I'm crazy. And so I just didn't believe that. But I came in here and I sat right over there. The chairs are different. And I sat over there and I'd come every morning at 9 o'clock, and I knew that I couldn't do anything on my own. And when I was in that treatment center and it got close to time for me to come home, I knew the only thing I had was my word. That was it. You understand? Nobody trusted me. Nobody believed me. Why would you? I didn't even believe my own self. Shit, I was scared I wasn't even going to make it. But I was willing to try anything. And so I knew, and so I had Art as my sponsor, and I'd come in here and I'd sit, and I'd come to the 9 o'clock meeting, the noon meeting, the 5:30 meeting, the 8 o'clock meeting, whatever the hell. If there's a meeting, I was here. You hear me? I just came. And I came until people remembered my name. And I'll never forget when somebody remembered my name. And I also remember when I was in that treatment center and I started asking about all those people that I loved that would be like Joe and Randy and Mike and Matt and you. Anybody that I knew and they knew my name, and I missed those people so much. What a tragedy is that I missed it. Because I said, how's Hal? How's Truman? How's so-and-so? They've all passed away. Those people saved my life. And I just wasn't there. And so I knew that that was not something that I wanted. And if I wanted to life, and if I wanted to be free, and if I wanted to have power, I had to give up power to get power. Who the hell says that shit? But okay, it works. And so I became okay with myself. You know, and my mother called me, well, I called my mother, and she said, I was in treatment, and she said, are you on drugs? And I said, I'm in a damn treatment center. She goes, well, you don't need to be doing drugs or drinking. I said, I know that, Mother. That's why I'm here. And she said, well, maybe you can smoke marijuana one day, but you can't do it right now. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to leave that shit alone. That's just for you. And so, you know, today it doesn't matter what other people do. It doesn't matter what you do. Deal is what am I going to do? How am I going to react to you? Listen, there are some people out there that can go and have a glass of wine. I don't understand it. Don't make no damn sense to me because I want the whole case. You know, and even whenever I went out and they said, oh, I think you can have one drink. And I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. When I start drinking, I'm going to lock that door and you're not getting no more. You hear me? And I knew that. And that was who I was. But that is not who I am today. And I've been able to make true amends. And listen, I knew that I needed to get rid of all the stuff that was inside of me. I knew that I needed to come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, because I was not. If you think I'm still sane today, you're crazy. I'm not sane. But with other people's help, I can stay sane. You know, but if you let me make the decisions, we're going off the rail. I'm taking your car and we're going somewhere, and I don't want to do that. So I don't make no decisions still today by myself. I'll call my sponsor and I'll go, listen, this is what I'm thinking. I'm gonna send this text message. And they go, are you sure you want to send this? Because this is the outcome. I'm like, oh no, that's not what I wanted. So I just don't do it. So I constantly check with other people, and I come in these rooms and I try and listen, and I go to big book studies, because just coming to meetings is not going to work for me. It don't work for me. I've got to study that big book. I've got to understand, and I've got to be able to incorporate other things. And without this foundation, nothing else happens. Nothing. And God has done some big miracles for me. Because when I got out of that court, my attorney stood right back there and he said, so when we go to court tomorrow, you're probably going to have to wear a monitor for 2 years. I said, are you crazy? I paid you money. He goes, no, they probably are. And we walked in there, and I prayed for the first time for God to do his will in their life, not mine. He walked up there and he talked to that DA and he said, this is the luckiest day of your life. And I walked up there and they said, Miss Everett, you're free to go. I said, what? You're free to go. So I left. Bet your ass I left. I went straight to the DMV to get my license changed, and when I got there, they said, you can't get your license, there's a flag from the IRS. And I said, what the hell? I mean, don't I get a break? I should just run this truck into this building. So I came to the 5:30 meeting, and I thought, well, either I can get high or I can have a cheeseburger. So I proceeded to eat a cheeseburger, and I ate a lot of cheeseburgers, and I put on about 30 pounds, and my AC1 and stuff started going crazy, and I was like, well, that's not good. So I had to listen to the doctors, and I had to do what they told me to do. But it worked. I mean, I lost 21 pounds, and my AC1 went from 13.4 to 7. I went, how the shit does that work? Oh, you followed directions. Well, that's some shit, you hear me? You take the medication the way they tell you to. Oh, well, that's good. And I didn't do anything else by myself. I've not apologized to one person since I've been back to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I've made some amends to people. I went to that IRS building, and I said, what do I got to do? I sat down and I let my daughter read that, and she said, do you know you made $1 million? I said, yeah, I know, but I don't have it, so let's just keep looking. So we just did it. And we did it together, and they settled for $3,600. And I only owe $2,400 today, because I pay them every month. Incredible. Just doing what is right in front of me to do. I can look anybody in the eye. At Christmas, I had a conversation with my ex-husband, and I proceeded to let him know that he was the best choice that I'd ever made. I wouldn't have picked a better father for my children. I would not have, those kids loved him, and was it painful to go through without them? Absolutely, but I wouldn't pick those kids up every time. We all came together, and we even went and watched LSU and Texas play, and all stayed in the same hotel room. And that was a long road from where we were, from us all hating each other. Because they told my children that I was dead when I was getting a divorce, because I didn't see them. So my daughter didn't even know I was her mother until she was 5. And I remember her standing there saying, I love you, Mommy. And I said, what'd you say? And she said, I love you. And I said, you've never said it like that. And she goes, that's because I realized you're my mommy. Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to not be hateful. Just because you're being hateful doesn't mean I get to be hateful. And I can do whatever it is that needs to be done. And so at Christmas this year, me and my ex-husband had a conversation. I did not know that he had stage 4 cancer at the time, and I proceeded to tell him he was a great father, and if I had to make the choice, I would choose him all over again, because he was that good of a man, and his family was good. And so with that being said, let's fast forward 4 months later, and he is laying on his deathbed at this moment, and my children are there. And I went there yesterday, and I took them 2 casseroles, and I didn't poison it or anything. It was fine. It was really good food. And I even was nice to the wife, because I love her. She helped take care of my children. They would not be who they are without them in her life. And I reassured her that if and when the time comes and he passes, that those are still her children, just like they're mine. We can do this together. I can do nothing alone, nothing. I would not have the God in my life that I have today. I don't have to be perfect, because listen, if I can't say some words sometimes, and I've done real good tonight because I'm not used to them, and it's really difficult for me because they want to come out so bad, but it's just not necessary. But if I can't say those words, then there's a problem. I moved home to Tyler, Texas to make amends to my mother, because me and my daughter's relationship was full and it was complete, and we became great friends, and I am the grandmother that I should always be. I'm their Gigi, and they love me. And I have a home here, and I have people in this state that I love, just like I love in Tyler, and I will miss you just like I miss them. And when I'm there, I think about y'all. And whenever I'm here, I'm thinking about them. I'm like, I don't like this, but that's okay. They didn't say it was going to be easy. They just said it'd be simple. So I just keep it real simple, and I get up and I pray. And once that was clean, and I knew that house was done, and I knew I'd made my amends by doing the right thing, I didn't take it for granted. The moment that I moved in with my daughter and she opened that door and let me in, I said, I'm paying you $300 a month until we can get better. And then I helped her pay off the card. I helped her pay off the credit cards, because I owed her that for all the things that I had done to her. So then I move on, and I go to my mother's, and I need to be there. And I'm not the hairstylist that I was anymore. I'm doing shampoos. People that have dementia don't even know who the hell I am, and that's okay. And they'll go, do you do shampoos? And I'm like, yeah, sure do. I mean, I used to be paid a lot of money to do hair, but that's okay. We're just going to let you think that. And that's okay. And my mother is good to those people. And I love watching her do that. And I can help her do things without any expectation. I don't deserve anything. If I got what I deserved, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you people tonight. You understand? I would be in jail. And so I am thankful for that. I just try to do the next right thing. I don't do it right all the time. Sometimes I say stuff I shouldn't say. Sometimes I'm like, no, I don't like that person over there. And then they're the ones that tell me what I need to hear the next day. And that's what my sponsor did. There was a lady, she drove me crazy. I said, I can't stand her. And she said, you keep going back to that meeting. I said, I'm not going to. She goes, well, you about should. So I did. And then she became one of my best friends, because she told me to stay behind the line. I thought, what the hell does that mean, stay behind the line? It's none of my business. What you do is none of my business. Who am I to tell you what to do? Obviously, what I've done has not worked that great, so I just need to stay over here in my lane. And then this other lady said, do everything with a gladly heart. And I thought, seriously? I mean, I've never been happy all my life, and I got to do everything with happy? Okay. But when you do it with a gladly heart and you just do it anyway, life turns out better. You know, I get in my car and make myself do things. Some friends invited me out to, and I was like, I don't do well doing that, you know, I don't. But I made myself get in the car, and I told my daughter, I said, I'm having a hard time doing this. She goes, I said, I'm just going to go. If I get out there and I don't like it, I'll just get in my car and leave. Okay, I spent all day. It was great. I had a good time. And so I make myself do that. Don't compare your insides with my outsides. It don't work. Because I'm looking at you and I think you got it all together, and you could be sitting there thinking, I'll just take myself out tomorrow. And that is a horrible place to be. You don't ever have to do those things if you don't want to. Is it hard for me to call somebody and say, I am not in a good spot? And I can't tell you how many times this last few months that I've done that, especially when things were happening with my ex-husband and all this stuff is happening. My son, I was there 2 days and my son goes to treatment. They call me to come get him to take him to treatment. I'm like, he don't even like my ass. Are you serious? Okay. So I go out there and I just do what AA taught me to do. I said, listen, we're not going to enable you. Either you can go to treatment or you can take that bottle and go down the street. But listen, and if you decide to leave before it's time, don't call any of us because we're not coming to pick you up. And I stayed out of the way. And all these people in AA started helping him. And he's got 5 weeks of sobriety, and his father's dying, and he's doing a 4-step, and he got a sponsor the first day he got out. And I'm like, who the hell are you? And he even asked me how I'm doing. And I'm like, are you serious? You've not asked me how I was doing for a long time. But we love each other today. And it takes all of us to do that. So if I can give you one thing, get inside the big book and don't just sit out here and hang on the outside. You got to get inside. And listen, you're not getting in my boat if you want to drown it. You hear me? If you've got a hole puncher, you're not getting in my boat. But if you want to get in my boat and you just want to try, and it's okay if you make a mistake. Don't drink, don't drink, don't drink. If I can remember that, and I have that healthy fear, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you I'm never going to drink again because I do not know that. But what I do know is that I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink today, and I'm going to pray that I make it through. I could leave my children there, come over here and take care of my daughter's house. She doesn't think that I'm going to steal everything because I used to. I'd probably sold her house and all the cars that were in the driveway. But I'm not going to do that today. And she knows it. And I can take care of her animals, and I can go back home. And this is my mother. I got some of her jewelry on. Anytime she gave me jewelry, I'd come over and sell it. She goes, listen, if you fall off the wagon when you're over there, don't sell my damn jewelry. And I said, I'm going to try my best not to fall off the wagon when I'm gone. But do I deserve her to tell me that? You're damn right I do. I treated her that way for years. It don't just happen overnight. It took me a long, long time to get where I was at. It's going to take me a long, long time to get out of it. And I can do that with your help, and that's what I'm here to do. Thank you.
Good job, Lisa. Enjoyed the story, and I hope all of the audience enjoyed it as well. So from Bossier City, Louisiana, that was at the Koala Club, and she's always going to be part of the Grouch and the Brainstorm.